The ships came without warning. Admiral Taman stood on the bridge of the Earth Defense Station, watching the sensors light up with impossible numbers. 12,000 alien warships had just appeared in Earth's orbit. Each one was larger than anything humanity had ever built, sir. They're broadcasting, his communications officer said, her voice shaking. The message played in every language on Earth. A deep, mechanical voice echoed through every speaker, every device, every radio frequency across the planet. Humans of Earth, we are the Vith Collective. We have ruled the galaxy for 4,000 years. 847 species serve us. You will be the 848th. You have 72 hours to surrender. Give us 30% of your resources. Give us 40% of your young people for our armies. Obey and you will live under our protection. Refuse and you will die. This is not a negotiation. This is a mercy. The broadcast ended. Silence filled the bridge. Taman was 63 years old. He had fought in the Mars Rebellion 30 years ago, when colonists tried to break free from Earth's control. He had seen war. He had seen death. But he had never seen anything like this. Get me the council, he said quietly. Now. 3 hours later, Taman stood before the Earth Unified Council in Geneva. The chamber was packed with leaders from every nation, every colony, every corner of human space. Fear filled the room like smoke. We must surrender, Chancellor Morrison from the European Union said. Look at those numbers. 12,000 ships. We have maybe 300 that could fight. This isn't a war. This is suicide. 30% of our resources, added Ambassador Okafor from the African Coalition. 40% of our youth. It's slavery, but it's survival. Dead people have no future. One by one, the leaders spoke. Almost all of them said the same thing. Surrender, live, fight another day, maybe, somehow, someday. Then Taman stepped forward. I want to tell you a story, he said. His voice was calm, steady. When I was young, I studied Earth history. Real history, not the clean version. I learned about every time someone powerful told people to kneel or die. The Mongols did it. The Romans did it. Empires across Earth did it for thousands of years. And you know what happened? He paused, looking at each face in the room. Sometimes people knelt. Sometimes they survived. But the ones we remember, the ones who changed everything, they were the ones who stood up, even when standing up meant death. Even when it was stupid, even when it was impossible. They stood up because being human means more than just breathing. It means choosing who you are. That's poetry, Admiral, Morrison said coldly. Poetry doesn't stop planet-killing weapons. Taman smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. 3 days ago, we received intelligence from Director Yunbi's operatives. They've been deep in Vith territory for 5 years. The Vith have destroyed 3 species who refused to surrender. 3 in 4,000 years. They're so confident, so sure of their power, that they never expect anyone to fight back. Their military doctrine hasn't changed in centuries. They don't innovate. They don't adapt. They just use overwhelming force and expect everyone to break. He pulled up a hologram. It showed star maps, fleet movements, tactical analyses. Dr. Hai Jin at the Lunar Research Facility has been working on experimental weapons, quantum destabilizers. They can make enemy shields tear their own ships apart. We've never tested them in real combat, because we've never had a real enemy, until now. Experimental weapons against 12,000 ships. Ambassador Chen from the Asian Alliance shook his head. You're talking about hope and courage. I'm talking about 8 billion lives on Earth alone. I'm talking about what happens if we kneel, Taman said. And now his voice grew hard. The Vith will take our children and turn them into soldiers for their empire. They'll take our resources and bleed our worlds dry. And in a generation, maybe 2, there won't be anything left that's human. We'll just be another servant species with old stories about when we used to be free. Director Yunbi stood up. She was small, quiet, the kind of person who seemed to disappear in crowds. But when she spoke, everyone listened. Our operatives report something else, she said. The subject species in the Vith Collective are watching us. All 846 of them. They've been slaves for centuries, some for thousands of years. They've forgotten what freedom looks like. But if we fight, if we show them that it's possible to resist, they might remember. They might rise up too. Or they might watch us die and learn to kneel faster, Morrison said. The debate went on for hours. Taman listened to every argument. Fear, logic, survival, mathematics. It all made sense. Surrender was the smart choice. Surrender was the only choice that ended with humanity alive. But then Captain Junho spoke. He was young, only 35, commander of the destroyer Indomitable. He had been Taemin's student once. My grandmother lived in Korea, Junho said quietly. She survived an occupation when she was young. Foreign soldiers in her streets, foreign flags over her schools. She told me once that surviving isn't the same as living. She said the worst thing wasn't the soldiers or the fear. It was the moment she almost forgot what freedom felt like. That moment haunted her until the day she died. He looked around the room. If we surrender now, we'll survive. But we'll forget. Our children will forget. And humanity will die anyway, just slower, quieter, sadder. The vote came at midnight. Taemin expected it to be close. Expected arguments, fights, maybe even violence. Instead, it was unanimous. Every single member of the Earth Unified Council voted the same way. The message was sent to the Vith flagship at Oro 100 hours. Just 3 words in response to their ultimatum. Humanity declines. Come. High Commander Thelvaxis received the message aboard his flagship, the Eternal Dominion. He read it 3 times. Then he laughed. A cold, harsh sound that made his crew step back nervously. 4,000 years, he said. 4,000 years and they still surprise me with their stupidity. Very well. Send the 3rd Fleet to Kepler 442b. That's their agricultural colony, yes? 8 million humans live there? Yes, High Commander. His tactical officer replied. Destroy it completely, turn the planet into dust. I want Earth to watch their people die. I want them to understand what refusal cost. Then they'll beg to surrender. They always do. The 3rd Fleet departed within the hour. 200 Vith warships, enough firepower to crack a planet's crust, headed toward Kepler 442b, but Thelvaxis had made his first mistake. He assumed humans would wait for death to come to them. He assumed they would watch and despair and break. He didn't understand that humanity had already decided something important. If they were going to die, they would die fighting, and they would make the Vith remember them. The Vith 3rd Fleet arrived at Kepler 442b expecting an easy victory. Governor Bo-Ra watched them come. She stood in the planetary command center, deep beneath the capital city of New Seoul. 8 million people lived on this world. They had built farms that fed a dozen colonies. They had built cities filled with music and art and life. Now 200 alien warships filled the sky. Evacuate who you can, Bo-Ra told her staff. Her voice was calm, but her hands shook. Get the children to the underground shelters. Send every ship we have toward the outer colonies. Maybe some will make it. The first Vith shots hit the defense platforms. Humanity's weapons were toys compared to Vith firepower. The platforms exploded like firecrackers, bright and brief and meaningless. Bo-Ra opened a channel to Earth. She knew this would be her last message. This is Governor Bo-Ra of Kepler 442b. They're here. Tell our families we love them. Tell Earth we died free. Tell them. The orbital bombardment began. Energy beams lanced down from space, each one carrying enough power to vaporize a city block. The sky turned white with fire, but the Vith commander made a mistake. He wanted to savor the victory. He wanted humanity to watch their colony die slowly, so he ordered his ships into tight formation. Perfect firing positions to maximize the terror below. That's when Captain Junho struck. The Indomitable and 17 other destroyers had been hiding in the asteroid field for 3 days. They had run silent, powered down, waiting. Now they activated quantum drives and appeared inside the Vith formation. Point-blank range. All ships, fire everything, Junho ordered. Dr. Hyjin's quantum destabilizers activated. The weapons sent harmonic waves that made Vith shields vibrate at impossible frequencies. The shields didn't just fail. They tore the ships apart from the inside. The first Vith dreadnought exploded before its crew even understood what was happening. Then another. Then 5 more. The Vith tried to return fire, but they were designed for long-range combat. Their formations assumed enemies would engage from thousands of kilometers away. They had never expected anyone to be suicidal enough to appear in the middle of their fleet. Humans were exactly that suicidal. The Indomitable spun through the chaos, firing missiles that split into dozens of smaller warheads. Each warhead carried a quantum destabilizer. 5 cruisers shredded themselves trying to activate defensive shields. Ship 3 is down, came a voice over the comm. Ship 7 reporting critical damage. Ship 12 is... The comm cut off as Ship 12 exploded. Junho watched his tactical display. 14 human ships were gone. 3 more were dying. But they had destroyed 183 Vith vessels. The enemy fleet scattered in confusion. For 4,000 years, the Vith had made others run from them. They had forgotten how to handle fear. All remaining ships emergency jump, Junho ordered. Random coordinates. Scatter and survive. Sir, random jumps could send us anywhere. His navigation officer protested. We could end up inside a star. Better than staying here, Junho said. Jump now! The Indomitable's quantum drive spun up. But before they jumped, Junho opened a channel. He broadcast on every Vith frequency. You expected submission. We are humanity. We do not kneel. Then they were gone, vanishing into quantum space. The Vith 3rd Fleet commander stared at his tactical display in disbelief. He had brought 200 ships. Now he had 17 left. 17 out of 200. A minor species, not even integrated into the collective yet, had just destroyed most of his fleet. He composed his report to High Commander Thelvaxis with shaking hands. News of the Kepler engagement spread through the Vith collective faster than light. Subject species on 1,000 worlds heard about it. They gathered in secret places and whispered. Humanity had drawn blood. On a planet called Veshtok, a species called the Torim heard the news. They had been slaves to the Vith for 800 years. Their history books, the ones the Vith allowed them to keep, barely remembered what freedom meant. An old Torim named Keshara gathered young ones in a basement. Do you know what this means? She whispered. The Vith can bleed. They can die. And if they can die, then maybe... She didn't finish. She didn't have to. Hope, extinct for 8 centuries, flickered to life in young eyes. This scene repeated on dozens of worlds. Hundreds of worlds. The slaves of the Vith collective began to remember something they had forgotten. Resistance was possible. Meanwhile, aboard the Eternal Dominion, High Commander Thelvaxis read the report for the 10th time. He couldn't believe it. Wouldn't believe it. Impossible, he said. Humans have inferior technology. Inferior numbers. Inferior everything. How did they destroy the 3rd Fleet? His tactical advisor, a veteran of 1,000 campaigns, spoke carefully. They used unconventional tactics, High Commander. They appeared at point-blank range using some kind of advanced stealth technology. They employed weapons we've never encountered. And they fought with complete disregard for their own survival. Suicide tactics, Thelvaxis said dismissively. The last resort of the desperate. Yes, High Commander. But effective suicide tactics, Thelvaxis stood. He was 3 meters tall, armored in ceremonial plates that showed his rank. He had commanded fleets for 200 years. He had conquered 40 species personally. Never, not once, had he felt what he felt now. Doubt. He crushed it immediately. Send a message to the Primarch Council, he said. Request authorization for total extermination protocols. No more mercy. No more offers. Humanity will be erased completely. Every colony. Every ship. Every trace that they ever existed. The authorization came back within hours. The Primarch Council, rulers of the Vith Collective, agreed. Humanity had violated the natural order. They had refused to know their place. They had damaged Vith pride. They would suffer for it. Thelvaxis smiled. Assemble the Grand Fleet. 127,000 warships. Every planet cracker we have. Every weapon of extinction. We will end this quickly and completely. His advisor hesitated. High Commander, that's 40% of our entire military. What if other species take this opportunity to rebel? They won't, Thelvaxis said with absolute confidence. They've been beaten too long. They've forgotten how to hope. One species of primitives got lucky. That's all. We'll crush the humans, and the rest of the collective will remember why they serve us. He was wrong about that too. Back on Earth, Admiral Taemin received Junho's report. 3 ships had made it back. 3 out of 18, but they had killed 183 Vith vessels, and they had proved something vital. The Vith could be hurt. Initiate protocol exodus, Taemin ordered. Evacuate all 17 colonies. Everything we can't carry, we destroy. Everything we can't destroy, we booby-trap. We're not giving them anything. Director Yunbi stepped forward. Sir, the Vith are assembling a massive fleet. Our operatives report over 100,000 ships. Taemin nodded slowly. Then we can't fight them head-on. We run, we hide. We hit them when they're not looking and disappear before they can respond. Guerrilla warfare, Yunbi said, against an interstellar empire. Do you have a better idea? She smiled grimly. Actually, Dr. Hyjin does, but you're not going to like it. 10 minutes later, Taemin listened to Hyejin's proposal. She was right. He didn't like it. You want to blow up stars? He said. Destabilize them, Hyejin corrected. We can make stars go supernova. The Vith use certain systems as staging areas. If we turn those stars into bombs, we'd kill everyone in those systems. We evacuate our people first. We warn the Vith even though they won't believe us. And then we show them that we can destroy not just ships but entire star systems. Taemin closed his eyes. This was beyond warfare. This was making weapons out of the universe itself. But the Vith were coming with planet crackers. With extinction protocols. Sometimes you had to become a monster to fight monsters. Do it, he said quietly. God forgive us. Do it. Commander Sung-ho watched the colony ships launch from New Busan. 4 million people were evacuating. Everything they owned, everything they had built, left behind. He commanded the colony ship Wanderer, one of 50 vessels trying to save as many lives as possible. But the Vith were coming. Their scouts had already entered the system. All ships, this is Wanderer Actual, Sung-ho transmitted. Execute evacuation plan Delta. We jump in 30 minutes whether we're full or not. On the ground, people ran. Parents carried children. Old folks were helped by strangers. Everyone knew the truth. Not everyone would make it. Lieutenant Min Seo stood at the main spaceport with 40 Marines. Her job was simple and terrible. Hold this position until the last ship launched, then blow the port's reactor and make sure the Vith got nothing but radioactive ash. She was 24 years old. This would probably be her last day alive. Contact, one of her Marines shouted. Vith dropships incoming. The enemy ships landed 2 kilometers away. Min Seo watched through her scope as hundreds of Vith shock troops poured out. They were huge, armored, carrying weapons that could punch through concrete. Steady, she told her Marines. Her voice didn't shake. She was proud of that. Wait for them to get close. Make every shot count. The Vith advanced in perfect formation. They didn't bother with cover. Why would they? They had fought 1,000 wars against 1,000 species. Some primitive humans with rifles weren't a threat. That arrogance cost them. Min Seo's Marines opened fire at 50 meters. Armor-piercing rounds found weak points in Vith armor. Grenades turned perfect formations into chaos. The first wave of Vith went down hard, but there were so many more behind them. Fall back to secondary positions, Min Seo ordered. Fighting retreat. Keep them busy. For 6 hours, 40 Marines held 2,000 Vith shock troops. They used every trick, every bit of cover, every mine they had planted in advance. The Vith kept coming, but they kept dying too. Min Seo's comm crackled. Lieutenant, this is Wanderer. Last ship is loading now. You have 10 minutes. 10 minutes. Min Seo looked at her Marines. 12 were dead. 15 more were wounded. 13 were still combat ready. Listen up, she said. We've done our job. Everyone's evacuated. Now we finish it. Set reactor overload and get to the emergency shuttle. We're leaving. But the Vith had other plans. A heavy assault team broke through the eastern defenses. 20 Vith shock troopers in full combat armor, heading straight for the spaceport. If they reached the ships, thousands would die. Get to the shuttle, Min Seo told her remaining Marines. That's an order. Sir, you can't. One started. Go, she screamed. I'll hold them. She didn't wait to see if they obeyed. She grabbed an automatic rifle and ran toward the Vith assault team. She was one person. They were 20. But she had something they didn't. She was fighting for people she loved. Min Seo hit them like a storm. She fired from one position, rolled to another, threw grenades, fired again. The Vith tried to locate her, tried to pin her down, but she never stopped moving. One Vith fell, then another, then 3 more. Her rifle clicked empty. She drew her sidearm, kept firing, kept moving. A Vith energy blast caught her in the shoulder. Pain exploded through her body, but she didn't stop. Couldn't stop. The last ship was launching. She could hear the engines. Another blast hit her leg. She fell, couldn't get up. But she could still shoot. The Vith surrounded her. She looked up at them, blood running down her face, and smiled. Worth it, she whispered. Then the spaceport reactor exploded. The blast wave threw the Vith like toys. Min Seo was at the edge of it. caught by the shockwave but shielded by debris. She should have died. Maybe part of her did. When she woke up, she was on the Wanderer. A medic was working on her burns. "How?" she managed to say. "Your Marines came back for you," the medic said. "Disobeyed your orders? Grabbed you 3 seconds before the reactor blew. You're a hero, Lieutenant. The whole colony got out because of you." Minseo closed her eyes. She didn't feel like a hero. She felt tired, but she had bought time. That's all any of them could do now. Buy time. In deep space, Dr. Dayun worked on the Helios bombs. Each device was small, barely larger than a person, but each one could destabilize a star. The science was terrifying. Stars burned through nuclear fusion, a careful balance of gravity and energy. The Helios bombs disrupted that balance. They made stars consume their fuel too fast, made them collapse and rebound in supernova explosions. "We're ready," Dayun told Admiral Taman. 3 bombs, 3 Vythe staging systems. "But sir, once we deploy these, there's no going back. We'll have 72 hours before the stars go nova. That's enough time to evacuate our people, but the Vythe won't believe us when we warn them." Taman finished. "They'll think it's a bluff. A desperate lie. 31,000 Vythe ships are in those systems, sir. That's 31,000 ships we're going to destroy." Taman looked at the star maps, looked at the numbers, thought about Minseo holding a spaceport alone, thought about all the humans running for their lives. "Deploy the bombs," he said, "and send the warnings. On every frequency. If the Vythe choose to ignore us, that's on them." The Helios bombs were deployed by stealth ships. They entered the target systems invisible, dropped the devices near the stars and vanished. Then the warnings went out. "Attention, Vythe forces. This system's star has been destabilized. It will go supernova in 72 hours. Evacuate immediately. This is not a threat. This is a fact. Evacuate now." High Commander Thelvaxis received the warnings and laughed. "Humans think they can threaten stars? Pathetic, they're desperate. Ignore their lies and continue the offensive." His tactical advisor wasn't so sure. "Sir, what if they're telling the truth? What if they've actually developed stellar destabilization technology?" "Impossible," Thelvaxis said. "We've studied stars for 4,000 years. They can't be weaponized. It's a bluff. A sad final bluff." 72 hours later, 3 stars went supernova simultaneously. The explosions were visible across the galaxy. 3 brilliant lights, 3 massive releases of energy, 3 staging systems turned to plasma. 31,000 Vythe warships died instantly. The shockwaves from the supernovas continued outward, destroying 14 more Vythe-controlled systems over the following weeks. The galaxy watched in horror and awe. Humanity had weaponized stars. On the Eternal Dominion, Thelvaxis stared at the sensor readings in disbelief. He had lost 31,000 ships. 45,000 more were damaged by the shockwaves. A third of his grand fleet gone in 3 blasts of light, and humanity had warned him. They had told him exactly what would happen, and he had ignored them because he couldn't imagine primitives with that kind of power. His crew looked at him, waiting for orders, but Thelvaxis couldn't speak. For the first time in 200 years of command, he felt something he had made countless others feel. Fear. On Earth, Director Yunbi received new intelligence. Her operatives across the collective reported the same thing. Rebellions, uprisings. 17 subject species had seen the supernovas. They had seen humanity hurt the Vythe, and they remembered what freedom meant. "It's spreading," Yunbi told Taimin. "The whole collective is destabilizing. Species that have been slaves for centuries are fighting back." Taimin nodded slowly. "Then we need to help them." "We need to coordinate. Turn this from scattered rebellions into a real revolution. That's going to take time, resources, and we're running out of both." "Then we buy more time," Taimin said. "We keep hitting the Vythe, keep them off balance. Keep them afraid." He pulled up a tactical map. Human forces were scattered across a dozen systems. The Vythe still had overwhelming numbers, but those numbers were now divided, fighting rebellions everywhere. "We can't beat them alone," Taimin said. "But we don't have to. We just have to survive long enough for the collective to tear itself apart." Captain Yuna listened to her orders aboard the stealth ship Silent Thunder. She was being sent deep into Vythe territory. Her mission was simple and suicidal. Steal the Vythe strategic database, every fleet position, every supply depot, every command center, every psychological profile of every Vythe commander. All of it in one heavily guarded archive on a fortress world. You'll have help, Taemin told her. Envoy Jiwoo will meet you there. He's been coordinating with rebel species. They'll provide a distraction. Yuna smiled. A distraction. Against a fortress world. This should be interesting. One more thing, Taemin said quietly. If you can't escape with the data, transmit it. Whatever it takes, Yuna understood. Whatever it takes meant she might not come home. Understood, sir. Silent thunder out. As her ship slipped into quantum space, Yuna thought about Minseo holding a spaceport alone, about Junho charging into the middle of an enemy fleet, about Governor Bo-Ra dying with her people. Everyone was sacrificing everything. She could do no less. Jiwoo had been behind enemy lines for 6 months. He was a diplomat by training, but now he was something else. A coordinator, a symbol, a spark trying to light 1,000 fires across the Vith Collective. He met the rebel leaders on a cold moon orbiting a gas giant. 6 different species, all taking enormous risks just to be here. They had been slaves so long that even meeting like this felt impossible. The humans destroyed 31,000 Vith ships, said Kashara, the old Torum who had whispered hope in basements. They made stars into weapons. They showed us the Vith can bleed. But they're still losing, said another rebel. A Vesh named Talmor. The Vith have millions of soldiers. Thousands of ships still. What can we do? Jiwoo pulled up a holographic map. It showed the Vith Collective, hundreds of systems, thousands of worlds. Alone we lose, he said simply. Humans alone, Torum alone, Vesh alone, we all lose. But together, if we all rise up at the same moment? The Vith can't fight everyone at once. You're talking about coordinated rebellion across the entire collective, Kashara said. That's never been done. Nothing we're doing has ever been done, Jiwoo replied. 6 months ago, the Vith seemed unstoppable. Now we're talking about rebellion. Humanity changed what's possible. We just have to finish what they started. He showed them the plan. Operation Phoenix. Simultaneous strikes on Vith targets across 847 systems. Military bases. Supply depots. Command centers. All at once. The humans will lead the main assault, Jiwoo said. But they need intelligence. Ship positions. Supply routes. Command structures. That's why I'm here. That's why Captain Yuna is coming. Coming where? Talmor asked. The archive world. Where the Vith keep their strategic database. We're going to steal it. The rebels looked at each other in shock. The archive world was the most heavily defended location in the collective, besides Vith Prime itself. That's suicide, someone said. Probably, Jiwoo agreed. But if we succeed, we give every rebel force in the galaxy the information they need to strike effectively. We turn scattered uprisings into a real war. Kashara studied the human carefully. You know you probably won't survive this. Jiwoo smiled sadly. My people have a saying. A candle that burns twice as bright burns half as long. I'd rather burn bright. 2 weeks later, Captain Yuna brought the Silent Thunder into the archive world system. She ran dark, using every stealth technology humanity had developed. The Vith sensors swept past her ship like searchlights that couldn't quite see her. Jiwoo contacted her from the surface. We're ready. The rebels are creating a distraction at the northern garrison. You'll have a 3-minute window when the orbital defenses shift to respond. 3 minutes to get in, steal the most protected data in the galaxy, and get out, Yuna muttered. Should be easy. The distraction began. Rebel forces hit the garrison with everything they had. Alarms screamed. Vith defense ships launched from the orbital platforms. Heading toward the attack, Yuna slipped through the gap they left behind. She landed the Silent Thunder in the shadow of the archive itself, a massive structure that looked like a black crystal mountain. Jiwoo met her at the entrance with a small team of rebels. Security? Yuna asked. Heavy, Jiwoo said, but we have a code. One of the rebels used to work here, before they remembered they were a slave and not a servant. They moved through corridors filled with data storage, past rooms where the Vith kept records of 4,000 years of conquest. Every species they'd beaten, every world they'd taken, every life they'd crushed. The central database was protected by physical and digital security. The rebels dealt with the physical, disabling guards, jamming sensors. Yuna handled the digital, using codes and hacking tools that Dr. Haijin had designed. I'm in, she said. Downloading now. This is everything. Fleet positions, supply chains, commander profiles, Psychological weaknesses. This is how we win. How long? Jiwoo asked. 3 minutes. Alarms began to scream. Five security had discovered them. Go, Jiwoo shouted at Yuna. Get to your ship. Not without you. I'll hold them, just go. Vith soldiers poured into the room. Jiwoo and the rebels opened fire, giving Yuna precious seconds. She ran, the stolen data secured in her suit's storage. Behind her, she heard Jiwoo's voice on the comm. Tell them we were here. Tell them we took their secrets. Tell them we're still coming. Then the comm went silent. Yuna made it to the silent thunder with Vith soldiers right behind her. She launched immediately, punching through the atmosphere with no regard for stealth. They knew she was here now. Speed was all that mattered. Energy blasts chased her ship. Missiles locked on. But the silent thunder lived up to its name, slipping and dodging through a storm of fire. She jumped to quantum space just as a Vith destroyer's main gun fired at her position. Safe. Alive. And carrying the key to victory. But Jiwoo was gone. The rebels who helped them were gone. The price of the data dripped like blood. Yuna set course for the rendezvous point and let herself cry. Just for a minute. Just once. Then she got back to work. The stolen intelligence reached Admiral Tae-min within a day. He spent hours studying it, seeing the collective's secrets laid bare. This is incredible, he said. We know where every major fleet is. We know their supply lines. We know which commanders are arrogant, which are cautious, which can be baited into mistakes. It's what Jiwoo died for, Director Yunbi said quietly. Then we use it well. We coordinate with every rebel force. We hit them everywhere at once. Operation Phoenix proceeds. But there was a problem. Dr. Daeun brought it to the command meeting. Sir, we don't have enough ships. Even with perfect intelligence, we need at least 20,000 combat vessels to hit all the targets simultaneously. We have 3,000. Maybe 4,000 if we count every armed shuttle and civilian ship with weapons. Taemin nodded slowly. How long would it take to build 20,000 ships? Years, maybe decades. We don't have that kind of time. What if we changed how we build them? Daeun blinked. Sir? Automation. AI assistance. What if we created a mobile shipyard that could build ships at impossible speed? What if we focused everything on production? She thought about it. It would require resources from a dozen systems. It would need to be hidden from Vith scouts. And the construction methods would be experimental, risky. Everything we've done is risky. Can you do it? Daeun smiled grimly. Give me 6 months and access to the Serpent Nebula. It has all the raw materials we need and it's too dense for Vith sensors. You have 4 months, Taemin said. We can't wait longer than that. Then I'd better get started. The Forge, as they called it, took shape in the heart of the Serpent Nebula. It was a massive structure, part shipyard, part factory, part automated assembly line. Robots worked alongside humans. AI systems managed construction down to the molecular level. Daeun pushed everyone to their limits and beyond. They built ships faster than anyone thought possible. Destroyers that would normally take months were finished in weeks. Cruisers in days. The design was simple, efficient, and brutal. Every lesson learned in blood against the Vith went into these ships. Quantum destabilizers, advanced stealth systems, armor that could shrug off Vith energy weapons. On Earth, people volunteered for the fleet in huge numbers. Not just soldiers, teachers, farmers, artists. Everyone who could fire a weapon or fly a ship stepped forward. Min Seo, recovered from her wounds, trained new Marines. She taught them what she learned holding a spaceport alone. The Vith expect you to break, she told them. They expect you to run. So you don't, you stand. You fight, and you make them pay for every step. Young pilot Dong Yoon listened to her words. He was 19, fresh from academy, eager to prove himself. He had no idea what real combat was like, but he was about to learn. 4 months passed. The Forge completed its work. When the final ship rolled out of construction, Admiral Taemin looked at the fleet roster in amazement. 23,000 combat vessels. Each one incorporating every advantage, every trick, every weapon humanity could devise. It's not enough to match the Vith, his tactical officer said. No, Taemin agreed. But with the intelligence Yuna brought us, with rebel forces across the galaxy ready to rise up with perfect coordination. He didn't finish. He didn't have to. They had one chance. One moment when everything would either work or humanity would be extinct. Messages went out to every rebel cell, every subject species, Every slave who remembered what freedom meant. The message was simple. Rise, fight. Together, we break the chains. High Commander Thelvaxis, still hunting for Earth, still consumed with rage, had no idea what was coming. His intelligence networks had been compromised. His security had been breached. His secrets were in enemy hands. The Vith Collective, 4,000 years of unchallenged dominance, stood on the edge of a knife, and humanity was about to push. Operation Phoenix began at exactly Oro 600 Galactic Standard Time. Across 847 systems, human and allied forces struck simultaneously. Supply depots exploded. Command centers went dark. Vith fleets found themselves ambushed by enemies who knew exactly where they would be. The collective reeled in confusion. For 4,000 years they had been the hunters. Now they were prey. Young pilot Dong Hyun flew his fighter through a storm of energy blasts above a Vith fuel depot. His squadron's job was simple: destroy the depot and deny the Vith fleet the resources to continue their offensive. Gold Leader, I have tone on the primary reactor, Dong Hyun reported, his fingers steady on the controls despite his racing heart. Take the shot. Gold 5, came the response. Dong Hyun fired. His missile streaked through defensive fire, slipped past automated defenses and struck the reactor core. The explosion lit up the night on 3 planets. Target destroyed. Someone shouted on the comm. Gold 5 got it. But Dong Hyun was already moving, already engaging the Vith fighters scrambling to defend the depot. His academy training kicked in. Roll, fire, dodge, fire again. A Vith fighter exploded. Then another. Dong Hyun couldn't believe it. He was actually winning. Then he understood what Minseo had tried to teach them. The Vith were powerful, but they fought like they expected to win. They made mistakes. And humans had learned to exploit every mistake. On a hospital ship near the front lines, combat medic Su Jin worked on a steady stream of wounded. Human Torim Vesh, she treated them all. Blood was blood. Pain was pain. It didn't matter what species, hang on. She told a young Torim soldier who had taken a blast to the chest. You're going to make it. You hear me? You're going to see your world free. The Torim's eyes focused on her. Free, he whispered. We're going to be free. Yes, Sujin said, hands steady even as her heart broke. You are. The Torim died with that word on his lips. Free. Sujin closed his eyes gently, then moved to the next patient. There would be time to grieve later. Now there was only work. Admiral Taemin stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the tactical display. Reports flooded in from across the galaxy. The operation was working. The Vith were fracturing, their forces scattered, responding to threats everywhere and nowhere. Sir, we have confirmation, Director Yunbi said. The Vith are recalling forces from the human front. They're pulling back to defend their core systems. How many? At least 40,000 ships. They're abandoning their offensive against us to put down rebellions. Taemin nodded. This was the moment. The Vith were divided, confused, vulnerable. Signal the fleet, he said. All ships. We're going to Vith Prime. His bridge crew stared at him in shock. Sir, that's their capital world. It'll be the most heavily defended planet in the galaxy. Exactly, Taemin said. That's where High Commander Thelvaxis will go. That's where we end this. If we can break their capital, if we can show the entire galaxy that even Vith Prime can fall, the collective will collapse completely. He looked at the faces around him, young and old, veterans and fresh recruits, all of them scared. All of them ready. Send the message to all ships. We're going to finish this, one way or another. The human fleet, 23,000 strong, jumped toward Vith Prime. High Commander Thelvaxis received word of the attack on his homeworld while he was 3 systems away. He had been hunting for Earth, still obsessed with destroying humanity's birthplace. Now the primitives were attacking his home. All ships, return to Vith Prime immediately, he ordered. Maximum speed. We end this now. His massive fleet turned and raced toward the capital. 80,000 warships, the largest concentration of Vith military power ever assembled. The 2 fleets met in orbit of Vith Prime. For a moment, there was silence. Humans looked at the massive Vith fleet and understood they were outnumbered 3-1. The Vith looked at the human fleet and saw the species that had humiliated them, hurt them, shown them that they could bleed. Then someone fired, and hell opened up. The battle was like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. Ships died by the hundreds every minute. Energy blasts lit up space like stars. Missiles traced lines of fire across the darkness. Dong Hyun's fighter squadron screamed through the chaos. Gold Squadron, target that dreadnought's engines. Bring it down! They dove toward a ship 100 times their size. Dodged defensive fire. Lost half their squadron in seconds. But the survivors hit the engines with quantum destabilizers and the dreadnought tore itself apart. On the ground, Min Seo led a boarding party onto a Vith command cruiser. They fought deck by deck, room by room. Vith soldiers were stronger, tougher, better equipped. But humans were desperate, furious, and absolutely unwilling to quit. Keep moving, Min Seo shouted, her rifle barking as she dropped another Vith soldier. Get to the bridge. They carved through the ship like a knife, leaving devastation behind them. 20 Marines took a ship with a crew of 3,000. When they reached the bridge, Min Seo set charges on the command systems and smiled at the dying Vith captain. You expected us to kneel, she said. Wrong choice. The cruiser exploded behind them as they reached the escape pods, but the Vith numbers were starting to tell. Human ships were dying faster now. The fleet was being pushed back, compressed, slowly crushed. Taemin watched his tactical display and knew they were losing. They had hurt the Vith badly, but not badly enough. Then Captain Yuna's voice crackled over the comm. Admiral, this is Silent Thunder. I'm in position. Taemin smiled. Yuna had slipped past the battle 3 days ago, invisible, patient, waiting for this exact moment. Execute your mission. Captain. The Silent Thunder emerged from Vith Prime's shadow, right next to the orbital defense platforms. Yuna had spent days planting quantum destabilizers on each platform, completely undetected. She activated them all at once. The platforms designed to protect Vith Prime turned on the Vith fleet instead. Massive energy weapons fired at friendly ships. Missile batteries launched at their own forces. Chaos erupted in the Vith formation. All ships full assault, Taemin ordered. Hit them now while they're confused. The human fleet surged forward. Every ship, every weapon, everything they had left, the Vith fleet broke. 4,000 years of military doctrine said they should win. The numbers said they should win. Their pride said they should win, but they were fighting an enemy that refused to acknowledge those numbers. Humans who saw impossible odds and said, so what? Species across the galaxy who remembered freedom and decided to bleed for it. The Vith Prime defense fleet shattered. Ships scattered. Formations collapsed. On the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, High Commander Thelvaxis watched his fleet die and couldn't understand how this had happened. They were superior. They were Vith. They were meant to rule. His ship was dying around him. Systems failing. Hull breached. Fires spreading. A communication request came from the human flagship. Against his better judgment, Thelvaxis accepted it. Admiral Taemin's face appeared on the screen. Old, tired, but unbroken. Why? Thelvaxis demanded. You could have surrendered. You could have lived. Why fight when fighting meant death? Taemin looked at him with something like pity. Because you expected us to kneel, he said quietly. Because you thought might made right. Because you forgot that every species, every being has the right to stand up. You wanted to break us, to make us slaves, to take our children and turn them into weapons for your empire. He paused, and when he spoke again, his voice was iron. We showed you that pride doesn't come from domination. It comes from standing when standing seems impossible. You wanted to make us submit. Instead, we burned your empire to ash. We made stars into weapons. We turned your slaves into rebels. We showed the entire galaxy that you could bleed. And now everyone knows. The Vith are not invincible. The Vith are not gods. The Vith are just another species that forgot that power without justice eventually falls. The Eternal Dominion's reactor went critical. Thelvaxis had time for one final thought. He still didn't understand. The ship exploded, taking the High Commander with it. The battle ended. The Vith fleet was destroyed. Vith Prime's defenses were silent, but the cost had been terrible. 15,000 human ships were gone. Hundreds of thousands of people dead. The rebel forces had suffered even worse losses. Taemin stood on the bridge and felt the weight of every life lost. Every sacrifice. Every person who would never go home, sir. We're receiving surrender requests, his communications officer said. From Vith forces across the galaxy. They're giving up. The collective was collapsing. Without Thelvaxis, without their core fleet, without their pride, the Vith simply stopped fighting. 4,000 years of dominance ended not with a grand battle, but with exhaustion. With the understanding that they had finally met someone who wouldn't break in the weeks that followed, the Free Systems Coalition was formed. Not an empire, not a hierarchy, a true democratic union of species committed to mutual defense and cooperation. Humanity refused to take control. They had fought for freedom, not to replace one master with another. On Earth, they built a monument. A black wall with 2.3 billion names. Every human who died in the war next to it stood another monument, blank except for words carved deep. Here are honored the countless beings of 1,000 species who suffered under tyranny, and those who rose with humanity to forge freedom from oppression.